What's up, detectives? It's Detective Malcolm here, and I'm here to teach you guys a little bit more about the game of D-Spirit.
The power belongs to me. I've got to take control. The spirits from deep within.
Alright, so I know you guys want to play D-Spirits. I know you want to get into it. It's one of the most fun games out there. But to play D-Spirits, you're gonna have to understand your cards. So in this video, I'm gonna break down a spirit card so you guys have a little bit more knowledge into how to play the game. I'm gonna go piece by piece through the card to teach you guys each component of the card. And for this, I'm gonna enlist my friend, Diamondite, and he's gonna help me out here. So first and foremost, in the top left corner, you're gonna find the D-Spirit's name. This D-Spirit is Diamondite, like I stated before. Directly underneath that, you're going to find the card's type. Diamondite is an earth type D-Spirit, but there are a ton of different types of D-Spirits in the game. Different types of D-Spirits are going to be able to do different things and be boosted against other D-Spirits. For instance, a lot of pixie type D-Spirits are going to gain you extra SP. A lot of spooky type D-Spirits can come back onto the field after being destroyed. Elemental type D-Spirits, once they destroy a spooky type, they can't come back. So you're definitely going to want to pay attention to the typing of the D-Spirit you put out on the field, especially once we get into the boost, which we're going to get to a little bit later in the video. On the top right of the card, you're going to find the card's SP cost. The game of D-Spirits is a little different from other trading card games. Each detective is going to start off with 5,000 SP points. As the game goes on, your D-Spirits are going to get destroyed. Once they get destroyed, you're going to pay the SP cost in the top left of the card and take that to your spirit points. You don't have to pay that SP cost to put them out onto the field, only when they get destroyed by battle. That also means you're not going to take SP costs if your D-Spirit gets destroyed by a card effect, which we'll get to a little bit later. SP management is a very important aspect of this game. There are a lot of big D-Spirits that have a lot of attack power or really good effects, but they also have a really high SP cost. So you want to pay attention to the types of D-Spirits and how much SP they're going to cost you when they get destroyed. Right under the SP cost in the top right corner, you're going to find the card's rarity. As you can see, the rarity meter is leaning over toward the red, which means Diamondite is a rare card. But there are also uncommon and common cards in the game too. Honestly, the rarity of the card doesn't really affect its usefulness in the game. There are a ton of common cards that are in my deck and help me every single game. Down in the bottom middle, you're going to find the D-Spirit's effect and ability. Every D-Spirit has their own individualized ability, which are going to let you do a multitude of different things in the game. Some D-Spirits are going to let you draw extra cards. Some D-Spirits are going to make other D-Spirits weaker. There's so many things you can do, so I highly recommend whenever your opponent puts out a D-Spirit you haven't seen, read the ability, because they can do so many different things and you do not want to be caught off guard. And not every single D-Spirit's effect and ability is going to be positive. For instance, Diamondite's ability says, Diamondite loses 500 endurance at the end of every single one of your turns. This ability means the longer Diamondite stays on the field, the weaker its endurance is going to get. So pay attention to those effects and abilities because they're not all always going to be positive. Down in the bottom right of the card, you're going to find the D-Spirit's power and endurance. The first number is going to be the power. This is how much your D-Spirit is going to be able to attack other D-Spirits with. For instance, Diamondite has 2,000 power, which means when he's going up against other D-Spirits, he gets to attack them with that much. If they have less than 2,000 power or endurance, they're going to get defeated. Now, right next to the power stat is the endurance stat. Diamondite has 3,000 endurance. Basically, what endurance is used for, when you're in endurance mode, which is turned to the side, it means you're no longer using your power stat to block other attacks. If your endurance stat is higher than your power stat, while your opponent is attacking you, you can turn yourself into endurance position and hopefully withstand the attack. Let's head over to the battlefield so I can teach you what that looks like. Okay. Let's take Diamondite and Zelius for example. If Zelius were to attack Diamondite and Diamondite stayed in the attack position, Zelius has 2,400 power and Diamondite only has 2,000, which means Diamondite would get destroyed. However, this is where the endurance stat comes into play. Diamondite has 3,000 endurance and Zelius has 2,400 attack. While Zelius is attacking, I would have the option to turn Diamondite into endurance position. And now it is Diamondite's 3,000 endurance versus Zelius' 2,400 power, which means Diamondite would get to stay on the field. However, the downside to turning a D-Spirits into endurance position means that Diamondite has to stay in endurance for an entire turn. which means I'm not going to be able to use Diamond Knight to attack on my next turn. But 9 times out of 10, turning your D-Spirit into Endurance and keeping them on the field is going to be a lot better than letting them get destroyed and taking them off the field. Right below the power and endurance stats, you're going to have the D-Spirit's boost. Diamond Knight has a plus 1000 boost to wind type D-Spirits. That means if Diamond Knight is attacking any other type of D-Spirit, it uses this 2000 attack like normal. But if Diamond Knight were to attack a wind type D-Spirit, he would then be attacking with 3000 power. And the same goes for endurance. If a wind type D-Spirit is attacking Diamond Knight, it has 4000 endurance. There are a lot of big D-Spirits with a lot of power and endurance that you may feel like you can't take out, but you really want to pay attention to those boosts because even small D-Spirits can get a big power boost when going up against the right type. Also, on the inverse of that, make sure you're looking at the boost of every single D-Spirit you go to attack. I can't tell you how many D-Spirits I've lost by attacking a D-Spirit that has a boost against whatever I'm using and I lose my own D-Spirit. I'm not willing to admit how many times that's happened. Last but not least, in the bottom left hand of the card, you're going to find a little information about your D-Spirit. I think these are really cool because you get to learn more about the D-Spirit's world and the lore just from looking at your card. I just like reading these. It lets me learn a little bit more about Diamond Knight and the rest of my team. It makes you feel a little bit more connected to your D-Spirit when you learn a little bit more about them. And that's pretty much all there is to a D-Spirit spirit card. You can have 15 to 20 of these in your spirit deck, and this is what you're going to use to really make a lot of action happen in the game. However, to be able to play a game of D-Spirit, you're also going to need to know about your support deck, which I'll teach you about in the next video. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you've learned a little bit to help you out in your endeavors as a detective. And as always, I'll catch you guys out on the D battlefield. Peace.